So the context here is Bill Gates did his annual letter in which he argued that foreign aid has been astonishingly effective and that people should stop attacking it. One of the people who has attacked it and whom Gates mentions by name often when he makes this point is Bill Easterly. So, Bill, what is your response to Gates's basic argument?
Well, what saddens me at the moment is that foreign aid is really on the wrong side of the debate that we see going on right now in the world between freedom and autocracy. And we see too often the aid agencies and the philanthropists, like even Mr. Gates himself, siding with the autocrats in many poor countries against the poor people who are rising up, seeking their own freedom, but aid is not on their side.
Well, but that's not fair. What he is arguing is that the aid given to any country, particularly if it's aid for public health, which is a lot of what Helene does. Well, I should let you make the case.
Well, first, I think the case has been made that aid is very effective and that being able to provide resources in the right way makes a difference. It saves lives, it educates children, it helps to feed people. And I think, we know that, for instance, rates of poverty have decreased dramatically over the last decades. And so I think, the numbers are there that show that clearly aid has made a difference. I think the debate is really around how can we make aid more effective? And then I think some of the arguments around how do we do that in a way that really helps people to develop a sense of their rights? How do we make sure that the solutions are done with communities in mind? Those are the kinds of things. How do we make sure that it's efficient and used most efficiently, gets to the right people, gets to the right places? So I think the debate about whether aid or not is probably not the right debate.
So what do you say about that public health initiatives, vaccination, things like that? You look at the infant mortality rates, you look at life expectancy in poor countries around the world are much, much higher than they much better than they used to be. Well, and this all because of aid.
I think this issue on child mortality, and Gates himself illustrates the point that aid is often not supporting the rights of the poor, it's ignoring the rights of the poor. Gates, in his previous annual letter a year ago, was actually praising the Ethiopian government lavishly for all the great things it was doing. This is the same Ethiopian government that has been caught by Human Rights Watch as misusing food aid in 2010, actually denying it to political opponents, giving it only to ruling party members. The aid agencies, USAID, the Department for International Development in Britain, the World Bank, they promised to investigate after this report came out when there was a little bit of exposure and heat on them, and then they never investigated. They told Human Rights Watch later, sorry, we're not going to investigate. Nobody protested this in aid or in the development community.
So the argument is, the way the foreign aid works inevitably is you're giving it to some government. That makes the government, that gives the government an incentive to be political, corrupt, and inefficient.
Well, first of all, I think it kind of confuses what aid is, because aid is not necessarily direct money to governments. A lot of aid goes to organizations like mine, CARE, where we're working on the ground with communities to find their own solutions. So first, I think it's important that, for people who don't understand what aid is, that we break it down and recognize aid, comes in lots of different forms, goes to many different sources. And aid that's most effective is, in fact, aid that, goes to the right people for the right interventions, and oftentimes.
So if I give you $100 for CARE,
right,
what would you do with that money? What typically?
Well, it depends. I mean, a lot of what we do is to work directly with communities to help them find solutions. For instance, a program that we had in Peru, 6 years we were able to reduce maternal mortality by 50% by talking to the women themselves. What were the obstacles for getting care? Why were they not accessing systems and services that were there? And by listening to them, we came up with solutions that got maternal mortality rates have them within a space of six years, increased the utilization of obstetric services from 30% to 75%. That was by listening to communities themselves. And I can give example after example, whether it's looking at village savings and loan programs where villagers get together and save resources that allow them to start businesses, or education programs, et cetera. Those are the kinds of things that are making a difference in real people's lives, and it's because of working directly with communities.
If the answer, Bill, is the absence of aid, get the aid out and then surely we have a controlled experiment here for for the last 400 years.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
foreign aid only began in the 1950s.
Yeah, yeah.
Most countries were poor, so the fact that you didn't get aid certainly didn't necessarily produce wealth.
Right, and the other thing those previous examples show is that freedom and individual rights played a huge role in the rise of Japan, of North America, of Western Europe.
And in Africa,
this is,
and in Asia.
And now it's spreading to Africa and Asia and Latin America.
The key
and
is free markets, free trade, right?
And democratic freedoms. And that's, but excuse me, that's exactly where I see the problem here. Not only is Bill Gates praising the government of Ethiopia, the World Bank president is praising the government of China that has just been exposed as a major human rights violator in the latest U.S. State Department report. This kind of praise for autocrats gives the impression that autocrats are part of the solution to development, when it's just the opposite. They are the obstacle to development.
But China has raised 450 million people out of poverty.
This is while people in China have been resisting the power of the central government. There was a bottom-up movement that managed to achieve a switch from collective farming to individual plots that later had to be recognized by the party.
Okay. We've got a final word.
Yeah, I guess I would just say, I think the data speak for themselves. We have reduced the number of people who are living in poverty. We have reduced the number of people who are dying needlessly. We have helped to educate children who wouldn't have been educated. We've helped to get farmers able to grow crops and feed their families. So I think those are the kinds of things that show that aid can be successfully applied, and we should be thinking about how do we do that better? How do we make sure that we're doing it coupled with the issues that Mr. Easterly talks about, making sure that people also have the ability to use their voice, use their rights in ways that make a difference for their full societies.
Thank you both. We will have to continue this debate later.